Have you ever felt like starting something new is like pushing a giant boulder up a hill? Whether you're picking up a musical instrument for the first time, learning a new sport, or even filming your first YouTube video, it can often feel like this. Overwhelming, unsure where to start, and self-doubt inevitably begins to creep in. You begin to think, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Well, let me start by saying you're not the only one. Procrastination is a coping mechanism for many of us. And we procrastinate because taking that first step is almost always the hardest one to take. The fear of failure, not knowing where to begin, or feeling like everything must be perfect. One way of avoiding taking that difficult first step is to avoid taking it at all. Back when I first opened Logic Pro on my computer for the first time, I remember it being like trying to pilot a spaceship. It all felt impossibly complicated, and the idea of making a radio-ready song at home just felt completely out of reach. But over time I learned something. Austin Kleon in his book Show Your Work says, the best way to overcome fear is to just start and let yourself be an amateur. Reading this changed the way I thought about creativity. It gave me permission to be bad at something and be okay with it, because starting imperfectly is better than not starting at all. Now, this is one of my favourite books of all time, and I'm going to refer to it a lot in this video. It's a book that teaches you not only how to start, but how to share your process and grow along the way. So let's talk about why there's no better time than right now to start, and how taking those messy first steps might just lead to something truly great. Amateurs will use whatever tools they can get their hands on. This is a powerful mindset. It's not about having the perfect setup. It's about starting with what you have. Take music production as an example. If you wanted to start recording and producing music just 20 years ago, the odds were very much stacked against you. 1, you needed access to a professional recording studio. 2, you had to live close enough to that studio to be able to make a daily commute. And if you didn't, you had to think about moving house to live closer to the studio. And 3, most daunting of all, you needed somebody working there to take a chance on you. And if the studio's gatekeeper didn't choose you, well, tough luck. Your dream was on hold indefinitely. Thankfully, the present day couldn't be more different. The barrier to entry now to do anything creative is at an all-time low, especially in music production. The new base model M4 Mac Mini at just $499 is more than capable for anyone just starting out. Link to that video up here if you fancy a watch after this one. If you have a computer, an audio interface, and a microphone, then you already have the core elements of a home studio at your fingertips. And that's not all. Platforms like YouTube, Skillshare, and countless others have some incredible resources to help you get started learning how to make music at home. And best of all, most of them are free. And lastly, there are no longer any gatekeepers. You no longer need anyone's approval to start learning. But here's the thing. Tools and resources aren't enough. It's your mindset that makes the real difference. Kleon's quote reminds us that being an amateur isn't actually a bad thing. It's about embracing the fact that you're starting from scratch and leaning into the process of learning and discovery. When I recorded that first guitar part in Logic Pro, I remember thinking very quickly that I just wouldn't be capable of making music that people actually wanted to hear. But then something clicked when I came across another idea in this book. The best way to get started is to think about what you want to learn and make a commitment to learning it in front of others. This shifted my focus from trying to make something perfect to simply showing up and sharing my journey. And that's when I realized that every messy attempt is valuable, not because it's great, but because it's honest. I mean, it's the very reason that we fall in love with many bands' debut albums like Definitely Maybe or Whatever People Say I Am. Not because they're perfect, but because they're honest, and that naivety is just so charming. When I started uploading onto Spotify, I made a decision very early on that I wasn't going to hide my early work. I mean, if you listen to some of my older tracks, you'll hear the flaws. That terrible tinny sounding drum track on Soapbox that was recorded with just a single microphone, the undercompressed and harsh sounding vocals that seem to dip in and out of the mix, and the mix itself, which is passable on headphones, but the moment you use a speaker and yeah, and I kept them up there for a reason. It reminds me, and hopefully others as well, just how far I've come. It reminds me that growth comes from showing up consistently, not from nailing it on the first try. Kleon says, share what you love, and the people who love the same things will find you. That's the magic of learning in public. It's not about presenting a finished product. It's about inviting people into your process. It's why I started a YouTube channel. Whether it's a rough demo, a work in progress, or a video of you struggling to play your first bar chord, sharing these moments creates connection, and it also creates accountability. By sharing my process and documenting my creative journey here on YouTube, I'm committing to showing up consistently and keeping this thing going. So if you're holding back because you're afraid of being judged, or because you think your work isn't good enough, let me tell you, you are good enough to start. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with progress. You might be watching this feeling like a beginner or an amateur today, and that's perfectly okay, because beginners don't wait for permission. They use what they have, embrace imperfection, and learn by doing and by sharing. So if you've made it this far into the video, you've heard me talk about the challenges of starting, the power of sharing a process, and the importance of learning in public. But let's step back for a moment. Why does any of this matter? Well, predictably, Austin Kleon puts it perfectly again. He says, overnight success is a myth. Building a substantial body of work takes a lifetime. When I look back at my own creative journey, I can see how every mistake, every happy accident, every clunky first attempt has contributed to the work that I'm proud of today. And here's the secret no one will tell you. There's no finish line. Creativity isn't about arriving at some mythical destination where your work is flawless, your audience is massive, and your fears are gone. It's about showing up day after day, month after month, year after year, and finding joy in the act of creating itself. When I release a song on Spotify, I don't think of it as the final word on my abilities. Instead, it's a snapshot. It's a moment in time that captures where I was, what I was learning, and what I was feeling from that particular experience. And the beauty of it, every song represents a chapter in the story that I'm still writing. So if you're sitting there wondering if you're ready to start, let me tell you, you absolutely are. You'll likely never have the feeling of being fully prepared, and that's okay. What matters is taking that first step, no matter how small, and trusting that every new attempt will teach you something new. Remember, progress doesn't come from waiting until you're perfect. It comes from doing the work one imperfect attempt at a time. And the best part, the joy of creating is in the process. And having said that, I've got some incredibly exciting projects in the works for 2025, and I cannot wait to share them with you guys soon. Creativity is all about collaboration and exchanging ideas, and I'd love to hear about your own creative journey in the comments below. So what are you waiting for? Pick up that guitar, open that DAW, or hit record on that video for the first time. And don't be shy of sharing your messy first drafts, your work in progress beats, your half-formed ideas, because somewhere out there, someone needs to see your journey to start their own, and I hope that I can be that person for somebody watching. 2025 is right around the corner, and you have a choice. It can either be another year of what ifs, or it can be the year that you surprise yourself. Don't let fear, self-doubt, and procrastination win. Oh, and I nearly forgot to say, the only bad start is the one that you didn't make. Remember that. Here's to a year of bold first steps. Happy creating, and I'll see you in the next one. 2025, I'm coming for you. 5 and you know it's true. I've gone all in for this ride.